sometimes. But my word, everything is coming over IYC, so sorry about that. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am Saddam Dikan Zajahan, Youth Representative. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am Saddam Dikan Zajahan, a Youth Representative of World Muslim Community Council based in Abu Dhabi. On behalf of the World Muslim Community Council, I would like to invite you for today's session, Faith-Based Charity in Action, Examples and Lessons. We would like to welcome Councillor Saima Ashraf, who is a member of Board of Advisors of the National Zakat Foundation in the UK. Councillor Saima Ashraf has been Deputy Director, Deputy Leader of Barking Regional Council since 2014. A Cabinet Member for Community Leadership and Engagement. Her responsibilities to empower communities during the COVID pandemic. This includes tackling inequalities and engaging different faiths and communities in the UK. In her recognition for long-standing work in the community, Councillor Ashraf won Community Champion Award at 2020 Local Government Information Unit Award by the UK government in the UK. Before we move into our session today, I would like to start with personal questions from Councillor Saima. What's inspired you to get involved in the faith-based charity work, and how has it impacted your own life?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you very much, Saddam, and everyone involved for hosting me. So what inspired me really is, first of all, my upbringing, being a person of faith, and also someone that, have seen my parents doing so much since a very young age. I was privileged to, work with my dad in France, as I was raised and brought up there, towards working in building a mosque there. And when I moved here to the UK, obviously, I bring everything with me, and coming here to the UK and living in London, I think that, was a place also where you can practice your faith in a good, liberal way. So being, that kind of person with this is really, everything that I do is very much faith inspired. I think for us it's very important to give back to the community and to get involved with community groups, faith groups overall. So it's something that, always really inspired me and made me the person I am today.
All right. Perfect. So how do you see faith-based charity work differ from secular charity work in the UK, and what unique benefit does offer for the community?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, we lost your connections. My second question is, how do you see faith-based charity work differ from secular charity work in the UK, and what unique benefit does it offer for the community?
Yeah, so I think it's important to say that, faith-based, but not faith restricted. And most of the work that we see is very much faith inspired. And, when it's purely faith-based, we can see the work being delivered by, the churches or the Gurdwara or, temples and mosques here in the UK. But everything that, is being done, even what I do, is very much faith-related. And looking after the community, my portfolio, which you mentioned earlier, which is community leadership and engagement, really involves heavily the faith sector, the voluntary and social sector in this London Borough of Barking and Dagenham. So for us, it's really important that we work together, regardless of secularism, but it doesn't need to be completely faith-oriented, but more inspired. And that's really what drives the work that is being done here. And we've seen all this work in action, especially during COVID. COVID was something that really brought us together, and for having community groups and faith groups working together in order to deliver services to our community. There was something that we done here in Barking and Dagenham, which was the Barking and Dagenham Citizen Alliance Network, and that was bringing the faith sector along with the voluntary, social and private sector together to work collaboratively in order to deliver services, and that could be delivering food, medical prescriptions collections, or even just befriending people over the phone, and asking, being available and caring for those who are experiencing loneliness as well. And that was all very much faith inspired, regardless of which faith we're talking about. We had, the churches, the mosques, the temples, gurdwaras, everybody working together. And I think this is what makes, the beauty of removing the faith restrictions into this, and being more, working in collaboration, regardless of backgrounds. Yeah.
Talk about partnership. Partnership is one of my key areas. For example, I'm strong believer of SDG 17. Without partnership, we cannot achieve anything. My next question is, what lessons have you learned the importance of partnership and collaborations in multi-faith charitable work, especially with the National Zakat Foundation, which you involved as a board of advisors?
Yes. So as I mentioned, the work I was doing locally in London Borough of Barking and Dagenham, I'm also, very privileged that I'm an advisor on the National Zakat Foundation, and talking about it on a national level. The National Zakat Foundation, which is faith-based charity, is vital nowadays for especially with the cost of living and the challenges economically that we are facing. So organizations like the NZF are doing tremendous work in order to deliver and really cater for our communities here in UK. Being an advisor, I felt like I was privileged also because I could actually use the work that NZF does on a much local level as well, and making it as a pilot. So we started a pilot here in Barking along with one of our partners, and I'm talking, when I say partners, from the council. So the council has a few partners, and Al Madina Mosque is one of them, which is also a community hub. What it means that any resident can enter the building and access those services. And by services, I mean anything related to employment, benefits. It could be domestic abuse, it could be skills, etc. And so for this hub to also being a pilot from the National Zakat Foundation meant that the support that the local authorities can give are available, but the support that is coming from a faith-based organization are also available, on top of like their own faith services, which made that pilot absolutely fantastic, because we've seen tremendous results in the delivery to our resident. So, we often talk about giving to the community, especially when it's faith-based charity, giving to the community, but giving it with a bit more impact. And this is where I feel like, faith-based charities needs to be a bit more strategic. It should not be about the quantity, but the quality and the impact it has on one's lives. We've seen results really changing lives from from our resident on a local level, but we know that on a national level, especially now in the UK, we've got the highest level of poverty in the Muslim, the highest level of poverty. We've got the Muslims are living in those areas actually. So that shows that we've got a lot of work to do in order to in order to work with our communities, especially from the Muslim community on a national level. But what I wanted to also touch is the donations that we give also brings the community together. And when I say that, it's like the Zakat that we give is one of our pillar in Islam. But that also brings the community together and also enhance the engagement, which like is a circle that can only make things better in my view.
Right. So can you share any lessons that you have learned, the importance of faith-based charity work and how it can be a powerful force for good in the world? So how?
Sorry, can you repeat? Yeah.
Have you shared any lessons that you learned about the importance of the charity work that you do and how it can be a powerful force for good in the world?
Yes, so I think I've touched a little bit on it in my previous answer, but everything I do is faith related, faith inspired, I would say, not related, faith inspired for sure. Bringing that collaboration is really important amongst faith groups. And we didn't had this in Barking and Dagenham, and I think that since 2014. I have been working heavily in bringing the faith sector together and removing those barriers of people working in silos, but bringing it more collaboratively on one platform. By doing this, we not only had, our response ready and up and running when the first lockdown in COVID was announced, but it hasn't stopped since. Now we're being affected by the cost of living crisis in the UK, and the faith sector overall is very much involved into what we do. I've mentioned Al Medina Mosque as one of the community hub. I have another hub, which is the Kingsley Hall one, which is a church-based faith groups. They provide from food bank to clothes bank and food clubs, etc., but also charity-based organization, which is more related to health and well-being as well. From all this, only good happened, because not only that brought the community together, but it also enhanced on the engagement and the participation of our resident. So when something good happens to you, it does influence you on doing something good for someone else, and that's like a ripple effect that affect our community, I would say. So we can see that there is a growing sense of community pride, social pride as well, beside all the challenges that residents are still facing.
Thank you, Councillor Saima. And how do you ensure that faith-based charity work is sustainable for long term, not just fixing a particular problem for short term? How do we ensure the sustainability of our faith-based charity work?
Yeah, so on this, I would say that faith-based charities, as I said earlier, should be more strategic. When I touched on the National Zakat Foundation, which is more national level, and when we can help a resident, we have to also be very wary of like the way we engage with them. And being like, that's my part of, you know, being an advisor on the community engagement aspect of things. And I know that, you know, we could sometimes be, you know, high tech and trying to be on, you know, platforms which are more online. But at the end of the day, you still have to be at the grassroots level. You still have to engage with people, and it's not, you know, being an online platform or being like more tech savvy does not always bring the diversity and the pool of people. So I would say that, you know, being more strategic on the engagement of our resident, but also of the population, but also being more strategic on the way we giving, especially if we look at, you know, faith-based. We, you know, it's not just by giving like £100 to a certain person that you will achieve a big change or an impact on someone's lives. It has to be more holistic, you know, approach, and often like bespoke approach to see what really, you know, would make a huge difference in one's lives. But if I look at, I'm also part of the World Congress of Muslim Philanthropists, and that's a more global platform, and that actually brings Muslim donors to partner with other various donors, which are, you know, based, which is like based on a faith-based and secular platforms. So we need to start to really work on the way that we are giving, being a bit more, you know, scrutinizing where and how we're giving it, but also, you know, finding different ways. And maybe it's often, you know, often it's not being more tech savvy, but going back to the grassroots level and seeing where and how we can approach resident or the community in a way that, you know, everyone feels that they're part of that engagement.
Thank you, Saima, for your inspiration and sharing your life experience, especially the work you do with National Zakat Foundation, especially with the Council of Baki and Daganna. So we inspired a lot from your work, and we also like to ask for final message for the young people around the world. What would be your message, and who would like to be involved in the charity, faith-based charity actions in the grassroots? So what would be your message? How they can duplicate your work, and how they can redo the same program that you're doing in you? What would be the best of?
Yeah, so I would encourage, you know, I always do so, but I will encourage anyone to be part of you know, charity work, regardless of your faith, your background. I think that it's always very personal. There is always a reward that you will get into it, and it's a self-satisfaction. But if I can just share very briefly with everyone, I moved from France here to the UK, and I couldn't speak a word of English. I remember that I was struggling. I could not, you know, I was unfortunately abandoned in a homeless unit hostel with my 3 daughters. And for me to start to get engaged with the community was to obviously start to speak and engage. And how did I do that? Is I joined a charity shop. I joined a shop that was selling clothes. That for me was a start really to engage and talk to people. And within a few months, I felt a bit more comfortable in speaking. That then led for me to join the political party and got elected in 2010 for the first time. I also volunteered with the Metropolitan Police for 2.5 years. That also completely changed me, because I learned about the rules, the law, the country, and what made me today, you know, an elected member. I'm in my 4th term now, and I'm the deputy leader of the council in Barking and Dagenham. But I always encourage people to volunteer, because not only you would gain a skill, you would learn If it's not a language, it would be, you know, a system, a skill. You develop yourself. It gives you opportunities and ideas. And if it's something that you really want to do, faith-based, that's always a reward that you will, you know, I pray that you find for yourself and also for others. Because we can all live for ourselves, but living for others and giving back to the community, because it has to have an impact on the society as well, and also for future generations. You know, I've done it. I know that you know, there's an impact for others, and all the young people. I would say that, you know, it's about giving back and also living a better world behind you. So making that great impact. So, but yeah, I hope that's something that reflect.
Thank you, Councillor Saima. Thank you for inspiration, and really inspiring to hear your life story, and especially after you moved to UK and the struggle you go through and become who you are today. It's really inspiring for young people, especially for me and people around the world.
Thank you.
On behalf of the World Muslim Community Council, I would like to thank you for joining us today, and we also thank everybody join the session and get benefit out of this. May Allah accept our intention. May Allah accept our work and get to inspire people, and we can do better, make this world better.
Jazakallah, and thank you very much for inviting me and hosting me.